In part one of this blog, I explain my model of the reptile brain and why our veneer of civilization is only wafer thin. Put people under pressure and they turn into lizards. Now, in the unlikely event that you have any doubts about this, please visit your local supermarket. You'll find that some people are behaving completely out of character and completely out of control, and it'll only get worse. But fortunately, in the same supermarket, you will see other people behaving with huge kindness to complete strangers. But the one constant at the moment with the flu epidemic is the high level of fear amongst just about everybody. I concluded part one by reaching the uncomfortable conclusion that hope is far too fragile in most people to be an effective antidote to fear. So if hope's not the answer, then what is? It just might be faith. Throughout the centuries, faith has been an ever-present constant. All religions are based on faith, and many philosophies too. I don't subscribe to any formal religion, and on occasions have been accused of being anti-religion. But this could not be further from the truth. In many of my books and articles, I've stressed the importance of faith and identified the positive impact that religion has made to civilization. My problem is how some people use religion for their own selfish or even criminal purposes, which completely contaminates the spiritual basis of their faith. In part one, I also promised to learn from people who survived the most extreme conditions imaginable. Did they survive because of faith, or was it something else? I will share two inspirational stories of people who faced almost certain death and survived the most appalling physical and mental stresses. The starting point today is Viktor Frankl and his books Man's Search for Meaning. I'm sure he means women as well. He was an Austrian psychiatrist who survived 3 years in the concentration death camps, and during this time lost his whole family. His survival was a miracle, and the fact that he used these experiences positively in his later life to establish his psychotherapeutic practice is even more incredible. This extract from his book expresses his thoughts exponentially more powerfully than I could possibly be able to do. Here he goes. Human existence, at least as long as it's not been neurotically distorted, is always directed to something or someone other than itself, be it a meaning to fulfill or another human being to encounter lovingly. For man is originally characterized by his search for meaning rather than his search for himself. The more he forgets himself, giving himself to a cause or another person, the more human he is. And the more he's immersed and absorbed in something or someone other than himself, the more he really becomes himself. So that was Viktor Frankl, and there you have it. Faith for another person or cause. Now, passion's another quality to consider on the short list, and is a much overused word. And when people describe their jobs and careers, you'll have noticed that sooner or later they stress how passionate they are about their work. And sometimes it's obvious that this indeed is true. However, very often it's obvious that they do not. They're not lying, they're just deluding themselves, probably because of what other people think they should believe. They're constructing some internal representation of what they think others will respect as a glamorous profession. Now, I guess there are times when we all need help to identify the difference between what we think we believe in and what we truly believe in. Indeed, we spend almost all our life living in the middle of delusion, which doesn't help. The second example is known as the Stockdale paradox. James Stockdale was an American naval commander during the Vietnam War and held prisoner in appalling conditions for over 7 years. The author James Collins interviewed Stockdale at length while writing his book, Good to Great. He asked Stockdale if he could tell the difference between those who were able to survive their dreadful conditions and those who could not. Who were they? Oh, says Stockdale, that's easy. The optimists. Oh, they were the ones who said, we're going to be out by Christmas. Christmas would come and Christmas would go. Then they'd say, we're going to be out by Easter. and Easter would come, and Easter would go. And then Thanksgiving, and then it would be Christmas again, and they were still there, and they died of a broken heart. This quotation resonates strongly with me, because in the world of self-development where I live, positive thinking is a much overused cliche and, in my view, a fairly useless strategy. A far more helpful interpretation of positivity, based on the above example, is known as the Stockdale paradox, and this is how Stockdale described it in his own words. This is a very important lesson. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be. So I guess, in my words, he's saying avoid the self-delusion trap, but never lose your guiding faith. Another self-delusion trap that we all fall into is believing that fear and anxiety are the same thing. They're not. Fear is not a problem. The problem is the way we think about fear, and this is why so many of us are so confused. Fear lives in a deep part of our brain, almost certainly the reptilian part. It's been around for millions of years for a very good reason. Without it, we would not have survived. I know something about fear, and I know people who know a lot more about fear than I do. During my career, I've been exposed to fear on a number of occasions. I spent most of this time in war zones and in challenging locations working as a doctor. I've been under fire, mortar attack, ambush, imprisonment, riots, robbery, and probably a few other things that I can't remember too. I've also had periods of illness, including a near-death experience with malignant malaria. And as if this isn't enough, in my medical capacity, I've been exposed to countless cases of major trauma arriving in the emergency room. So why am I sharing this with you? Well, I can assure you it's not for pleasure, because these are painful, but fortunately they're distant memories now. I'm sharing them with you for one reason only, because surprisingly, not least to me, is that I had no fear during these in-the-moment experiences. We all have incredibly powerful hormones and neurotransmitters that are primed to help us instantly. These responses are hardwired and do not require any effort on our part to release them. They're always there, ready to be called upon as necessary. No thinking required. However, there are many times when I experienced acute anxiety. Anxiety is a delusion because it's worrying about future events that may or may not happen. None of us can predict the future, but we're really, really good at imagining it. So good that our bodies believe it as truth and react with a biological stress response. Anxiety is a relatively new phenomenon, and it probably only reared its ugly head when we learned how to talk to each other about 60,000 years ago, and we would tell our stories and share our fantasies as if they were real. Now, if you can find a way to think about anxiety and fear in a different light, it will be one of the most liberating things you'll achieve in your life. The bottom line is that anxiety is coming from our conscious mind and is a hindrance that we can well do without. So this video is already far too long, and I will not stretch your patience any further today. But there are two other subjects that are incredibly important in overcoming fear. I'll share them with you in the next and final part of this series. The two subjects I will talk about are infinite intelligence and ego is no amigo. And this is a taste of what is to come from Thomas Edison, the physicist. I know this world is ruled by infinite intelligence. Everything that surrounds us, everything that exists, proves that there are infinite laws behind it. There can be no denying this fact. It's mathematical in its precision. So that's enough for today. Thanks very much for subscribing my channel and for your interest in these things. I'll be working now over the next few days to get part 3 done. So in the meantime, stay happy and most importantly, stay well. Goodbye for now.